to Doxxed, the podcast.
I think we're both hoping for this to just really be a space for everybody that wants the space to talk about their experience with Allie. And you have a very unique perspective on all of this, Ashley. So I'm not even sure where you want to start, but I would love to hear what you think.
I think starting at the most recent thing it seems that she may have come to the realization, oh yeah, Ashley, you started all of this. And I was like, wow, we're late on that one.
In a way you did, but in a way,
yeah, well, there was
you really just spoke up.
There was a break in the concrete, that's for sure. But I was just like, here's a jackhammer, and then everybody brought their jackhammers too, and so there we were, just plowing away, I guess. But it seems that I followed Allie and was a supporter of the idea behind educating people about the harmful aspects of spirituality, especially within the disabled community. Because there's definitely been times in my own life where I felt really frustrated with the process. And I obviously, through time, trial, and error, figured out that not everything is for everyone. And what works for some people doesn't necessarily work for everyone. And that's the importance of tuning in and hearing yourself the loudest will benefit you more than listening to anybody. But as I said, I followed her and watched her content, and then it was sometime during the Alex Serves Tea era that, because of how Alex Serves Tea was talking, I grew concerned about her mental stability, possibly. And then that's when I raised the question, like, hey, at what point do you think it might be unsafe to be making so many videos? Because clearly she's on the edge of some kind of breakdown, and that just worries me that, like, what if it was the straw that broke the camel's back and she did something that she couldn't take back? And regardless how I feel about her views being harmful, it's still a life, and I think people can be helped. So I made those comments, and, Allie was a mutual of mine, so I thought she would probably respond to the comments, but they went unanswered. And I was like, I went back to see, maybe did I miss it or something? And I could not find them. Given the fact there were a lot of videos, maybe I missed which one I had commented that on. But now, knowing what I know, it was likely that it was deleted, because that seems like it might be a common thing whenever you raise question and maybe she doesn't want to deal with you directly, to just delete the comment. So I was like, well, whatever. And of course, you guys see clearly, I just went on about my life. I didn't give it much thought. But then DJ Morris is someone I follow and have supported. I love her bubbly personality. She just radiates. She's smiley and she's happy. And I seen her coming after her, and also it being a Black creator, I felt I should say something to Allie, because I felt it was just out of line. And that's when the girl that I don't know if we say her name, but P. That's when
we can call her P.
Yeah, that's when those videos started coming out, that this girl had passed away due to harmful spirituality. And then I was being drug into other aspects, and me not really being her typical person to come after, because I don't really post a lot of spiritual content necessarily. I think I post like insightful things sometimes, but not necessarily like your typical spiritual content, more so like self-awareness kind of stuff. And of course, you spoke up and said, like, I can't believe that Ashley is speaking her truth and people are treating her this way, you know. And then obviously
Yeah.
it seems like all hell broke loose after that. And has been
Yeah.
ongoing for like over a month now. And it's been wild. I am more, I'm the kind of person that likes to observe and learn what I can about myself from this situation. And my takeaway is, you know, initially in making my video, that's, you know, Allie, you are a bully, I said. And then looking, I rewatched those videos today, and, you know, I did bear some responsibility to sit with my feelings, you know, in some regard, instead of allowing somebody to have some kind of power over me to put me in fear of sharing my truth. You know, I could have sat with that. But I think that that's where I was in that moment. And that's what I shared. And I don't have any regrets about that. And like I said in the video before, like, I think it's as true as when I said it, if not more so now. So I stand by the fact that I do think that she bullies people. I did at some point feel and have some compassion and empathy towards her desire to help people. But I think slowly, as seeing this unfold, especially with Roxy, I don't have that same compassion. I feel that she's just a cruel person. And I think that no one is benefiting from that because it lacks the educational value that it would take to benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the other thing that really sticks out to me, first of all, I thought you were very gracious, actually, in your initial videos that I saw, and when you tagged me in, whenever that was, like early January.
Yeah.
I didn't think anything you said was below the belt or out of line at all. And the other thing that really struck me about her going after you was that you were, I believe, a relatively smaller creator. And I don't know off
Yeah.
the top of my head, what's your follower count? It's not
It's
It's not like at her size.
15,000. But
Okay.
my engagement does not, I feel, reflect that number whatsoever. It seems that some of the videos that I had that garnered a lot of attention were more so like goofy stuff. And I don't think that it had the staying power for those same people to engage with who I really am. So, you know, it goes to show you going viral for something that's kind of silly doesn't always warrant the right kind of attention, I guess, you know.
Yeah, well, you're another Aquarian, so I think you like me are very complex. You can't just get it from
No,
one video.
I could never niche down, I don't think.
Yeah, that's all right though. I think that's a better TikTok.
Yeah, it's been just, it's a lot to take in because I don't know how old she is, but I'm guessing 35, 36 range, probably
Yeah, I
my,
think she's
my same
35.
age. And I'm just kind of stunned that she doesn't have more going on in her life that, like, I don't know what allows her to just be able to make 21 videos about Roxy in one day that I counted. I'm just like, geez, Lord, that's like, there's only 24 hours in a day and there's 21 videos here. Like, and then you account for like editing time. This is like constant, and that's not good for anybody, you know? I think it lacks a little bit of maturity. And I wonder, like, at some points I found myself wondering, like, how much of this is like real and how much of it is just like a put on for the crowd to keep it going. You know how, like, when Trump would give like speeches and stuff, it was like, does he really believe this stuff, or is he just trying to get people like more pissed? You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
rage farming essentially.
Yeah, rage farming I think is definitely the word for it. Um and she made videos about you too, right? And she called you a stalker, which is horrible.
Yeah, she did. There was the comments where she was grouping. She was like, I know the stalkers are you and Ashley Miller. And I'm like, what? And she would tag me. She would tag me in it. And I would be like, I have literally been trying to figure out if there's toxic mold on my dresser all week. Like, what?
Yeah. Yeah, you're
And
clearly living your life,
I
doing your
was.
own
I mean,
thing.
I was planning, like I said, like in the video, I legitimately was planning a weekend getaway for my birthday, discovering mold in my bedroom and realizing that had been making me sick. So, like, it had been like a pretty crazy week. So that kind of took me by surprise. And then I was like, what? Like, I haven't even looked at her stuff. And actually, I had her blocked, but somebody sent me like the sent me that she was saying it, which happens often.
Yeah.
People send me stuff and say, you know, she's saying this, and that's why the most recent thing, I just have to make fart jokes out of it because it's kind of clownery at this point. Like,
Yeah.
is Roxy all good there?
Yeah, I think Roxy was having trouble getting recorded because of disk space, so she was going to try to pop back in on a different browser.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's
If you
happening
need me
yet
to
or not.
hold tight, I
Okay.
can. It's whatever. I'm not in any rush. So,
Well, thank you. I think we're good. She said to keep going uninterrupted, but I also think it's probably fine if we just wait for her to pop back on, and
okay.
we can just obviously like clip this out of the middle.
Yeah, no
Oh,
problem. That's no biggie at all.
cool.
River's
Are
all
you with us?
set up.
I
Did
think we
she?
can hear you, Roxy.
Yeah.
Is it recording you?
I'm in.
There we
Awesome.
go.
Yeah.
Well, welcome.
Awesome.
Technical difficulties.
I
That
didn't want to
was
interrupt you guys.
no worries at all. Yeah, I guess I'm just surprised that it's went on as long as it had. I kind of made the videos and I didn't even think they would go anywhere. You know what I mean? I thought they would go ignored, but I just wanted to say it because I had seen
Yeah.
it and it was happening and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, just stop. Like actually educate people." I followed the page because I thought I was going to learn about ADHD and autism and how spirituality kind of can work with these things, and the only information that I took away was the video that she did with the speaker guy that's was speaking on ADHD, and
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty much it. And then I kind of realized, like, wow, I've been following for a really long time and I really haven't gained any new insight. I've actually started to question myself in negative ways, and
Yeah.
that's that dangerous aspect of it is like, okay, well, if we don't believe in those things, well, what is safe to believe in? And then I'm like, are you really asking? In my mind, these are the things I'm thinking. Like, am I really asking for someone to tell me what my beliefs are? This is crazy.
Yeah.
I gotta unfollow this. So I did. I unfollowed, and apparently I still followed the other account, and that's where I seen the videos of DJ that initially sparked me to create the video in the first place. So,
Yeah.
and I was really glad that you stepped. I mean, it's unfortunate that you stepped up to defend me, and then
I would again any day.
Yeah,
You were totally right.
I felt like she was waiting for that moment. It was like, oh, you again? Let's go.
Yeah.
Round and round the ring we go. Like,
oh yeah. But you were totally right. You were totally right. And it like it's so important, I think, for us to defend and maintain some kind of space where we can talk freely about our beliefs. And that to me is a huge problem. When you said, I don't feel safe to talk about my beliefs in this space.
yeah, and it wasn't because, and it wasn't necessarily because I was worried, like I said in the video, what if I say one wrong thing? And what I meant by that, not actually wrong thing that's harmful to be said,
Yeah.
but something she thinks is harmful to
Yeah.
be thought. And because then it doesn't, like you said, we need to be able to have the space to question certain aspects of spirituality, even the parts that might be dangerous. They need to be talked about so we can explore those more. if they weren't talked about, we wouldn't find out that they were harmful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I
Uh,
totally agree.
so I felt just like, what can I really talk about? You know, and then there was the part of the video, and I wanted to address this in a video on TikTok, but I knew I was going to be doing this. So, and I thought I'm going to actually talk about it there. You know, when you say very little to her, she only, like in my case, she didn't have a lot to go off of. So she continued to bring up the same talking points in relationship to me, which
Yeah.
was, you think children attract their own abuse, which I never said I believe children attract their own abuse. I said, uh, you said, well, what about the kids? And I'm like, I don't know. And what I mean by that is, in life, there are going to be things that we will never have the answers to, especially in spirituality. We're never going to know for
Yeah.
100% truth. There's no question about it. And my thing is if I can't know the truth about something, then it's irrelevant. And I needed to push forward and focus on the things that I do know. And what can I do with that? So, yeah, you know, if children did attract their own abuse, that would be pretty fucked up. That would mean this universe is a really odd place and I don't understand it, you know? But the thing is abuse does happen regardless. So what now? What can we do? What is the solutions to that? That's what I want to focus on. These hypotheticals of, well, if this is true, then why do people get cancer? I don't know that answer. All I can focus on is, how can I continue to expand myself and have awareness about myself and extend grace to my community? How can I be effective in my communities? Because more so than anything, I don't think I used to believe that spirituality was a self process, but I think more as I get older, I really realize that I feel the most fulfilled when I'm helping my community. And that is truly spiritual to me, more so than like just focusing on shadow work 24/7. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Get busy. You know, we can sit with the uncomfortable thoughts all evening long, but during the day, let's get our hands dirty. Let's get out there and actually do something that's going to have value. You know, I was telling my mom earlier on the phone when I was talking about this, I said, you know, the question often comes up of like, are extraterrestrials real, especially with all these sky phenomenons occurring?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, honestly, it's irrelevant if they're real or not. We don't know that. So I don't think it's worth my energy to sit and ponder on things I can't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's super powerful. And I agree with so much of what you say there. And like, I just think you're a very smart person. So yeah, I'm glad that you spoke up. I think it was really important. And I think you really were like this secret linchpin almost of the whole thing, because you did the cleverest thing ever and just immediately kind of stepped back and did your own thing and had this really fun, detached, but in a positive way, or like a healing way, energy about your approach to the entire, mess. And I think that speaks to like a very grounded person. So I just really admire you. But I wonder, did you deal with a lot of, was there a lot of follower abuse toward you, or did you
Yeah.
have to filter your comments or deal with any of that? And, how
I,
did that make
I
you feel?
didn't filter, any of the comments, and I read everything that came through. And one thing I learned, and this is from being in a really toxic relationship with a possible narcissist. I mean, I'm not qualified to say, but, toxic nonetheless. One thing I realized and really took away from that relationship is it does not benefit to argue with someone back and forth that insists on misunderstanding you. And moreover, they almost use you defending yourself against you. So if they say, for instance, using, well, you think XYZ, and then I go to explain myself, that just gives them more fuel. Because I'm sure they'll be able to find, oh, here's another talking point in what you said. And that's what that ex used to do to me. I would call him out for something that had happened. And then next thing I know, I'm defending myself for some reason, and I hadn't done anything wrong, you know? And that's
Yeah.
what toxic people do. And I could feel that right away. And it was a very familiar feeling. And I was like, where have we felt this before? And I
Yeah.
said, oh, and this is a growing exercise for me to show myself just how grounded are you now? Are you going to let someone pull you out of where you worked so hard to get? Because I will tell you, I have not always been very grounded, you know? Not at all. You know, I've said this in videos before. I used to be incredibly emotionally reactive. And I hurt myself on accident. I got pissed and I kicked a door and my leg went through the door, and I was
Wow.
cut really bad. And I waited, tried to stop the bleeding myself. And it was at the point where I was like kind of starting to pass out a little bit that I thought it better call an ambulance, and did. And then, it was a very traumatic situation because I almost didn't make it. And that really scared me and really showed me the importance of finding a way to get control of myself in these moments where my emotions want to take me over. So yeah, it would have been really easy for me, and I'm going to speak candidly here, to tear her ass up if I wanted to. But I know that I can, so that doesn't mean that I should. Because I will tell you, like I said, I am peaceful, but I'm not harmless. And
No.
I know how to defend myself. But I'm a firm believer that if you let people talk long enough, they will talk themselves straight into a hole. And I knew that would be exactly what happened. I even told my son's father, I was like, eventually she's going to say something that will ruin herself. Nobody has to do it for her. She talks too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm very glad that you survived and made it through that whole ordeal that you're describing. And you're somebody that I've totally looked up to throughout this whole situation. So thank you.
Don't
You
make
know,
me cry.
part you played. Really, though. I mean, it's
The
been so hard. Everybody's reacted differently, but
Yeah.
there was
And
something very grounded.
the hateful comments, they were crazy. I mean, like and I even made a video about like how people just throw around the word delusional. And I said, like, what if I was? Like, how does that
Yeah.
help? Like,
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm delusional. I don't feel like I have any beliefs I mean, I am mystical. And I do have some beliefs that can't be proven for sure. But I know that. I know that some of the things I believe, not everyone's going to believe, and that's okay. And I don't think any of the things that I believe are hurting anyone else. And like, even with the lucky girl syndrome, I'm like, is this for real? Like, these are just two young gals in the car excited that they found something that made them excited for the moment. They'll probably forget about it in 2 months anyways. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why bother? And it's just to have material. I think it's just to be able to have something to talk about, you know. And like I say, like, if something is stressing you out and you feel like I've done everything, this is not working, what's wrong with me? If you get to the place where you're asking those kind of questions, maybe it's time to find a different belief. Maybe that one's not healthy for you to believe, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's all really wise sounding to me. And unfortunately, Roxy's having trouble with her audio. And so she's sending me some messages She's still here with us in
Okay.
video in spirit, but she was asking through the chat if I could ask you the following question. What duties and responsibilities do you believe spiritual content creators have as influencers in the community, and where should the line be drawn between educator versus call out creator? Do you have thoughts on that?
Okay, I'm going to pull the question so I can reference back to it also. Um,
Okay.
what duties and responsibilities do you believe spiritual content creators have as an influencer in the community? Okay, so with a large following comes a great responsibility. Whether you're doing what Allie did or you're a super spiritual followed person, I think that if it were me, if I had a huge following and I was a spiritual content creator predominantly, I think I would remind people that discernment is the most important aspect of all of this. And honestly, I think a healthy minded spiritual teacher would remind people, regardless of what I'm telling you, you need to hear what you feel inside of you is right for you. I can't give you all of the answers. I can say, I did this in my life and it helped me process more of my trauma, or I did these exercises every morning and I felt more positive. That doesn't mean that this is going to work for you, because I wouldn't want to mislead people. And a good example of this is before my son's father and I got back together this past year, we've been living in the same house, co parenting for like 2 years. Many people asked, like, how do you guys do that? Like, what is your secret to co parenting so effectively and looking like a family? I want to do that. Had a lot of people that said, you should start a course, you should teach people how to co parent. And I really wanted to, and I got excited about the possibility of helping people. But then I realized not everyone's me. And what if I led people down the wrong path and they just trusted everything I said? And then a family got hurt or something like that. And because I know that people are out there, they're when we have a lot of trauma, we're looking for something to latch into that gives us hope, some kind of happiness. And the idea of co-parenting effectively is on the top of a lot of parents' lists if they're not together. And I really worried about not being able to guide people in the right way. And I knew that the way that we got there isn't the same way that somebody else can get to where we are, if at all. I did create 4 principles that I would share, but I wouldn't say, hey, you can do this too. You know, I think more spiritual
Yeah.
teachers need to address their followings like that. Like, you can do this. It doesn't mean that it's going to necessarily work. I think that's the responsibility, to remind people that what's for one isn't for everyone. And I don't mean it in a way of like exclusionary. It just, we're all different and our experiences have been different. And then
Yeah.
the other part, where should the line be drawn between educator and call out creator? Um, First and foremost, 20 videos about one person, you are no longer an educator. If you if you cannot educate in one video, like, I'm not saying, like, if you used a stitch, for instance,
Yeah.
and then you build your idea from that one stitch, that's one thing. But to make and set and make 20 to one person said like 60 videos about Zoomhoff. That's no longer what, you're not educating, you're complaining. That's not teaching anyone anything. And furthermore, I don't, whenever you're teaching about the toxic aspects of things, I would go as far as to say of creating your own content altogether. And when you see something, oh, this isn't necessarily good thing on the internet that I'm seeing, people need to know about the dangers of this specifically, I would create a lesson around that without even including the other person. Because one thing I think is really important is to not platform people that are dangerous at all. You know,
Yeah.
I could, for example, I could sit and tell you all the reasons why our governor of Florida is not great, but I'm not going to platform him. I'm going to say what we should do instead. And that's why I've tried to start this YouTube kids page, reading the banned books.
Oh, cool. I love that.
Yeah, if they're going to ban the books, we're going to make sure that the kids can read them. I've got
Yeah,
about
that's great.
five moms here in town that are like, we'll split the duties with you. So I'm like, this is excellent. I knew that we could do something cool like this because it's upsetting. You know, that's our youth, our future. So
Yeah,
let's see. Did I
that's
answer all the
correct.
parts of that?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
think it's really, I mean, I think it's really interesting, and I actually have follow-up questions like, because you talk about sort of larger influencers and their responsibilities, but would you extend those responsibilities to kind of everyone in the sense that we're all kind of influencers of each other, or do
Yeah.
you think there's kind of a line there?
Yeah, I don't think that there is, yeah, that person does have more people following them, but the responsibility's still there because, I mean, consider the fact of who you could have 300 followers, but what if one of those followers was extremely impressionable and got the wrong idea and that led to something really terrible? So, it doesn't matter if it's big or small. I do think large creators have a big responsibility, but that doesn't mean that smaller ones don't have that same responsibility to encourage their followers to use discernment, and not only encourage it, but illustrate clearly of how to exercise it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And then the other question I had was, do you think that it's possible to, it's kind of a leading question, but do you think it's possible to not hurt anyone or not cause any harm? Like, is
No,
there even a way,
I
to
don't.
approach a platform like that?
I don't think that when I go out into my day, me just being me, you know, I am not, it's not that I'm not friendly. It's just that I don't do small talk. So I'm not like, top of the morning to you. How's that? Like, I'm not chatty Kathy. I don't like the small talk pleasantries. So could we say, is that harmful to somebody who may have needed a hello? You know, like, yeah, we can't go. A good example is my son. Like, I apparently am always hurting his feelings every time I tell him, no, I can't buy more coins on the games.
That's a
So
shame.
I know. I wish I could buy all the coins. But I don't think we cannot hurt anybody. We're human beings and we all have such a spectrum of emotions and feelings. And to, if you didn't want to harm anyone, you just would never speak. And
Yeah,
love is sometimes, oh my gosh, sorry. My phone keeps going off.
that's
Love is being able to speak the truth sometimes. And I felt like what I did with Allie, I I don't want to say I love her, but I love people. And I did that in love.
yeah.
And I did that like a sister would do to a sister. And I would do the same thing to you or to Roxy. Because when you care about people, you let them know when they're hurting other people. And one thing I forgot, a key point is the rapport there with that person to be able to speak that way with them. And I think
Mm.
that was where I missed. I think I did handle it with care, but maybe the rapport wasn't there. And I think that that's been common with a lot of our followers that got burned by speaking up and realizing, oh, well, I guess we're not social media friends the way that I thought we were, kind of like social media friends. Obviously don't know her in real life. I've never had a conversation other than on TikTok with her. So, but I think that you can't just go through life without hurting someone's feelings. I think it's about how you rectify that is the most meaningful, most powerful thing, and how you can take accountability and say, like I did, like maybe I should have sat with how uncomfortable she was making me feel for a little bit longer. But I think that the emotion was raw, and I think that that was an important part of what I said too. So I wouldn't take that back. But yeah, I think we wouldn't be talking, and then we would never know. We would never be communicating. Because I know sometimes whenever, my partner says, hey, you did this, and then I get my feelings hurt, but not because I get hurt because I did something that hurt them. And how do I rectify that? How do I make that better? And I think that that's what really is a testament to who you are, more than if you hurt someone.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Let's see. Roxy has some chats here. Okay. She said rapport doesn't matter with ASAC. LOL. Same in real life.
Apparently not. No.
Yeah.
And
well, we all learned a little bit about parasocial relationships, didn't we?
I did. I you know what? Before she made those videos, I'd never heard of such a word. I seriously
really?
never even knew. I mean, I guess the concept was there, but I never had a word with the concept. So that led me down a rabbit hole, and that's actually got me thinking like, hey, that's where that rapport came in. I'm like, yeah, you didn't have that the way you thought you had it.
Yeah. It's easy to feel like you have it in those pairs, especially the way that it works on TikTok, where it can even be like a doubly parasocial relationship, because you're not like a nameless, faceless account. You're somebody else with a platform, regardless of the size. And so it can feel like a friendship when actually it's kind of this like two-way parasocial thing.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Roxy says there's a big difference between being hurt that you hurt someone versus being hurt that someone had the audacity to speak up about you hurting them.
Oh,
yeah.
And that, to go back to the toxic relationship that I was in, that was the case all the time. Any kind of like guilt or I'm sorry, it wasn't a true I'm sorry. It was I'm sorry that I got caught kind of like thing. I'm sorry I got caught up. I'm not actually really sorry. And, like the video where she said, or the comment, like, I will work on my content. And you can see I look back at how genuine I was, that I was like, thank you for saying that. Like,
you were so genuine.
That was like really fucking cool. I didn't expect that. And then little did I know, apparently that was a cruel joke. And I think where that whole, like, where I don't get the memo kind of thing sometimes. Apparently that was sarcasm, maybe.
Well, she did the same exact thing to me as well. I mean, I don't know if you saw that later. It happened to me, and I think I've never really encountered somebody who's so cruel as to do that, where they'll like act like they're sincerely apologizing and then yank the apology as soon as you accept it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, she totally did that to you too. It was terrible.
Yeah, I felt that was really strange. I was like, wait, I thought we were all going in a different direction. And then, like, we weren't. So I was like, hey, I really think that, you initially had a good idea about something you could bring to the table so essentially of what you could bring to the table for social media. And I really think that we could all be allies and helping. And then it was like, no, I don't want to be allies with you. And I'm like, what did I really do? I just, but like I said, I don't dwell on the things that I can't know the answers to. Obviously, I don't know what's going on with her. There's obviously, it's kind of like when I'm working with clients at work and they want to treat me really bad. And I'm like, where's this coming from? Obviously, there's more going on here than just with me today. So, and I kind of feel like this is a situation like that. There's more to this than just her being mad at me. And then the last day or so making more videos about me. And it's like, I don't know. I just think at this point to bring me back into it and still like green screening my videos is desperate at this point. I don't know really what you
Yeah.
want to go on, because I try to really not be a problematic person. I don't find it very difficult to not be, to be honest.
Mhm.
I genuinely care about people's feelings, and I try to
Yeah.
put myself in their shoes of how what I'm putting on the internet might make someone who's guilty of the thing I'm talking about feel, and word
Yeah.
that in such a way that doesn't make them feel brutalized, because you can be honest without being brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You
you
can be
might,
honest in love and
yeah,
with
and you
empathy.
might ask yourself, if you're having to be brutal with your message, why? What's going on with you that you have to? And that's not tone policing. I don't want to take it there. I just genuinely mean, like, in the callous way, like even calling P, you poked at a dead girl's family. Like, a dead girl? Like, don't say that. Don't say that. Like, that sounds callous. And then,
Yeah.
furthermore, I wasn't poking at her family. That was a public Facebook page for missing persons that when I was searching for that girl to find more information, because I think you posed a very, like, a question that I was thinking the same thing. Like, is this person a real person? I thought it.
Yeah.
A lot of people were thinking it. So I did my own digging around, and when it says in on Facebook how the comments are all out of order is just a clusterfuck. So it like made it really difficult to follow. But from what I gathered from the Facebook page was there had been somebody found. Apparently it may have not been her, but then it may have been. So there was a little bit of a flip flop there. And I was just trying to get a clear answer of a
Yeah.
conclusion of what was going on. And many other people were asking similar questions. It wasn't.
Are you tired of feeling unsafe online? Do you want to learn how to protect yourself from cyberbullying, doxing, and other forms of online harassment? Then look no further than Doxxed the Podcast. Visit the website doxxedthepodcast.com to sign up for the Doxxed free ebook full of helpful tips and resources for online safety. Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive the weekly newsletter with the latest updates on upcoming content. There are many ways to connect with Doxxed, including Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Discord. Have a story to share or feedback to give? Use the contact form on the site to reach out or leave a voice message to be featured on the show. And for exclusive content, subscribe to the Doxxed Supercast to gain access to the private podcast feed with member-only exclusives. Take control of your online safety and join the Doxxed community today.
That was several weeks before. Somebody must have screenshotted it and sent it to her to have something. But in no way was that a family member's Facebook page. I wouldn't have it wouldn't have been worth it to me to like dig into her family. I mean, I care that someone passed away, but I didn't care that much to find out the answer. I knew it would come out eventually anyways.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about that, but I'm glad you explained, because they did kind of dig that up in the last few days and try to shove it back in your face. And it looked to me like it was from several weeks ago. And it
Yeah.
totally made sense to me to just try to figure out what was going on, because there was so much competing information and
Yeah.
you were being dragged into it. Like I don't know whether or not you were accused by any of the followers of actually having blood on your hands, etc.
Yeah, I was.
But
I was
you were,
tagged in that
yeah,
video. That's why I was like, I'm
okay,
not sure why you tagged me in this, because I'm not a
exactly.
spiritual creator.
Yeah.
Because she said this is for you. So I was like, yeah, I definitely am not responsible for that girl. And
Yeah.
I wasn't even going to explain that, because I think it goes without
Yeah.
saying, really.
Yeah, so you mean the one that was the one she's in the car and I think
Yes.
that's the original one she accused, because I was also tagged in that. And I was also like, in what way am I connected to this? That was the first
Yeah.
video. Like, what? Like, that girl died. That girl died. And you're right, that using the term that girl to describe her is so callous and so distancing. Like, it
Yeah.
reminds me of when Bill Clinton is like, I did not have sex with that woman. Like, it's so distancing.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
were you?
It
Yeah.
felt weird. I was like, this is giving me an icky feeling. And then I have to bring this up because I even sent it to a friend because I was like, why is this comment getting to me? During when I was getting hate from her followers, one person said, you should be glad that Allie P is coming for you and not because I know a lot of Black creators that you should be really worried about. Well, and I was like, my content's hardly an issue, but why is this
Yeah.
this comment? I don't like it. And I sent it to my friend. I was like, why is this bothering me? And he said, because you were probably, he actually stitched the comment and made a video. He was like, these people seen some Ashley Miller girl was probably spitting some straight facts at him and thought that they might be able to invalidate everything that you're saying if they can make you out to shine a specific type of light on you. And that's what they were doing. And then they tried to like briefly bring up politics, like to insinuate that I was probably like conservative or something. I'm like, huh. Oh, friend,
Right. That
you're
seems
in.
almost classist because of like, I think people, I don't know, tend to like maybe judge the accent or something.
Oh, they do. Yeah.
Think they can just like hit a low blow. Yeah, Roxy says in the chat, people hear a Southern accent. She has harsh truths can be delivered with compassion. Brutal honesty is abusive.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I think it's like an assumption, and it also came into play. But like, I'll attest personally. You and I have been mutuals for a long time. I think probably because I have Aquarian in my username, and so I attract
Oh,
a lot of
yeah.
Aquarian
I
mutuals.
followed you before I
Yeah,
even found Allie. Like,
yeah, a long
I was
time.
following you before I even seen her account.
Yeah, I remember that. And I've never seen, not that I've traced every single person involved in this down and seen every single piece of content they've ever made, but I've never seen anything problematic from you. You've always had very wholesome, very like grounded, uplifting, powerful
Occasionally I
content.
will share a message that's a little like controversial in a sense that it would probably piss off a certain demographic of people that I don't really care if it pisses them off, and especially in relationship to women's rights, to health care
Yeah.
specifically. Yeah, but I don't care if that's problematic.
Yeah. Well, you should
That's
be able to be free on your platform to say whatever you want to say.
yeah, and
I mean,
I mean,
to some extent, I guess, unless it's really harmful.
I say on a regular basis too, like even out here in the real world, when you hear people say like shitty things, I think it's important for them to be allowed to say those shitty things because I want to know who you are. If you're not a good person, I want to know. I want to be able to
Yeah.
see it. I don't want it to be hidden. We want
No, that's a
those
really good
people out in the
too.
open.
And you're right. Some of the most insidious stuff is stuff that's dog whistled and just not said
Oh
out
yeah,
in the open. And it
that's
really is
exactly.
very revealing when people are pressed to say what they actually believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Because some people are like, what do you believe in? More than believing in anything, I believe that the possibility of anything is true. You could say that you see fairies and communicate with them, and I would say, wow, that's really neat. I wish I could see one. That would be fucking cool. But I'm not able to for whatever reason, but that's cool for you. I hope that makes you happy. I hope you enjoy that, more than anything, my cup is empty and ready to be filled with possibilities, and potential. But like I said, I think it all goes back to community more than anything. I think that that's where you'll feel the most fulfilled with any practice is how can you be of service? Like, especially once you've done healing work on yourself and you feel that you're at a good grounded place within yourself, then how can you extend that to other people? Back in my pageantry days, I started a group and it was called Spill the Tea. And T was an acronym for talent, education, and awareness. And my group helped single mothers. And through a series of webinars and like workshops, we pulled the natural talent through education. And then the one requirement for every participant is to pick one community service effort that's close to their heart to bring awareness to. And the amount of women that were helped, like just during this time of like a couple years, 2-3 years, I look back and I'm like, still, I can't believe I did that. Like, that's wild. It was just something that was important. I knew how much I felt alone and suffering as a single mom for so long. And I didn't know how to like cultivate my own talents. And once I learned how, I was like, I need to show other women who might be struggling, give them hope. And that was a really fun time. That was something awesome that I'm glad that I can say that I got to do that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And the community is such an important aspect of it. I love that. I think you're completely right. Like, you fill your own cup and then it goes outward from there, from you as the source of it.
Yeah. And I think once you're, I don't know if you want to call it alignment with yourself or whatever you want to say the words are, but when you're in this place where you can really be a beacon to other people and where you can show up and inspire them in some way. I know, like, my one friend that we hang out kind of more frequently than anyone, she always says, like, I just love being around you when we get done hanging out, like, I'm ready to start on like all these things that I've been putting off and holding back on. You just like get me excited to like start things. And I'm like, yeah, I like have a billion projects that are half started. So don't necessarily be like me in that regard. Stick to one thing, finish it first.
It takes balance of a bunch of different ways of being, right, to get this stuff done.
It's like, what is that? I think the show's The Family Guy or something where he's like, ooh, piece of candy. Ooh, piece of candy.
Yeah.
That's me with ideas and projects. But that's okay, because it keeps me going. And, if you can stay happy, I think that's what it's all about. Like, this world is a scary place sometimes. And like I've said in previous videos, like, ultimately, instead of going after specific creators for teaching harmful things, let's get down to the root and why people are needing to believe in harmful things, which really just directly links back to a sick society. And 100%. It's easy to point the finger at just this guy or this gal or this one or that one. But when you don't know who really to point it at to get the true solution, you know what I'm saying? Like, the powers that be that are crippling society and causing need for people to go into complete delusional thinking to have a shred of happiness,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like displacing things all the time instead of solving the problem.
Because, sure, you get one harmful person off of the internet and then there's 50 there to replace him, because the one thing about society is it's breeding more and more problems constantly for people.
Yeah.
So that's never gonna, if that doesn't stop, then those people are never gonna stop. And I think if you really, like I've said, like, if you want to abdicate for something, abdicate for equity. Like, that's really what is going to get society to a better place, and a more meaningful place. Oh, I see a kitty cat.
Oh, there's a kitty behind me. I couldn't agree more. And I think that it's funny how it's kind of a lesson for me as well. And you talked earlier about how you try to take a lesson out of every experience that you're going through. And for me, like, this is all a big game of mirrors, and I'm also trying to see what I can take out of it. And that's one of those things, just like, it's not any individual. If I get too angry at this one person and too hateful toward this one individual, I'm suddenly no longer solving the problem I'm setting out to solve, because
exactly.
it's a systemic problem. But you can still call people out in love.
You can, and and you can defend yourself too. Like, if someone is, just relentlessly coming after you, you probably need to speak up and not ignore that, because I don't think that that sets a good example either. We're not, we shouldn't be welcome mats in our relationships or in our online relationships with people. I think that it's important to, and that's what I did. I said my piece. I said, this is what's what, and you don't like it, wipe your ass with the opinion. I don't care.
Absolutely. And it was gorgeous. It was great. Every moment of it. Roxy says in the chat, we were talking earlier about accents, and she said, I feel like I've experienced something similar with the ASAC phenomena with weaponizing the Black viewers. They too hear a certain type of accent from me and assume anti-Blackness, which I think is really interesting. And, I think it also, like, going back to your account as well, Ashley, I wish that you had more of a following, and I hope that, like, there will be some kind of a big shift, because I think that there should be a new, like newly empowered people who are influencers who actually aren't just niching down and actually are trying to approach things in a grounded way. And what I would love to see is that getting the kind of traction and representation and platforming that currently these kind of like drama accounts get. I don't know how realistic it is. Like, maybe that's a pipe dream that's like going to come to the forefront, but I wish it would be centered, like exactly the kind of content that you put out. But I don't think people see the depth of what you do, because you just show your real self,
Yeah, it's, I feel the same way. It's hard. Sometimes it's really discouraging, because I'm like, man, I'm trying to, it's really caused me to get more in touch with myself ultimately, because I want to show up as real and Ashley as I can. That way there's never a mistake about who or what I'm all about.
Yeah.
I want that to shine through the content. And like you said, you don't know if it's just a pipe dream. It is this world that I've always dreamed of, where the right kind of people, and I can say that about myself, and I can boast for a minute that the right kind of people get a stage that can be inspiring and know how to do it. Like it's not something that I like intentionally set out to do. It's just something that naturally occurs, and I just always trace it. I always say I didn't have the childlike essence, world out of me. The world didn't take it from me. They couldn't, maybe it's because of neurodivergency. They weren't able to pin me down and get that out of me. And maybe it's that rebellious Aquarius nature that said, oh, hell no. No, you want me to be that? Well, I'm going to do the opposite. And my dad always said that was your personality. You're whatever people think or you should do, you're going to do the different thing.
Well, I love that for you. I once heard a quote about Aquarians where everybody else has to stay true to themselves, but we have to stay true to who we're going to become someday.
That is so true. Wow.
Doesn't that ring true? Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that in my bones, man. It's like, and one thing, the whole competitive aspect of it gets me too. It's just, I'm just competing with who I was yesterday or on my best day, and yeah. I don't hold myself to some rigid standard either about it. I know, hey, it's okay if my house gets messy. It's all right if I don't pump out a fucking superb, insightful message every single day. Sometimes it's just something goofy and stupid about yogurt and blueberries. But, other times it's something that I think really needs to be heard. And it would be really awesome. It seems like the dumbest things I post are the ones that get like a lot of attention. I'm like, God, really? This one? The one about mushrooms, the guy that's like, you want to learn to grow your own mushrooms? I'm like, yeah, man. Yeah, I do. Seriously, that's what's going to get the attention. I'm like, give me the heater. Get the heater on me, TikTok.
Yeah.
And that does play. I think you're right, though. In this whole debacle the fact that you could have so many community guidelines violations and harassment and bullying cases probably against you during this time that it remains, I think is because it keeps people on the app. And Facebook did a very similar thing where it was all rage farming back in the start of 2016 on. That's how they kept people on the app. They kept them arguing. And I thought TikTok, when I joined, was going to be like not that. And I think in a lot of ways it isn't. But in some ways it is, because you see some real harmful people continue to be able to spew their hatred, which is shocking to me, kind of. But not surprised. It's not surprising. You know, that's kind of how this world has worked up into this point anyways. But I'm not going to give up hope that we can, through our messages and others, can change that.
Well, good. Neither are we. Hope is the thing, I think.
It is. Yep.
And I appreciate you. You give me hope. I'm being like, but I just absolutely love you through this. I just love everything that you've had to say about it. I just think it's been so level-headed. And I really appreciate you talking to us today. I know it's we're having some technical difficulties. I'm sorry about that Roxy couldn't kind of have her own voice today. But thank you so much for talking to us, because I think everybody's kind of telling their own story. And that means that at different times, different people get centered in the way the narrative's going. And I think you've in some ways dropped off. But to me, you're like one of the really central people. You really kicked this into gear and really made it happen in a way that I think most people don't even at all understand, and they should.
No,
You're underestimated.
I've looked at the situation from like a more bird's eye perspective, and I'm like, man, and even Dylan was like, what'd you do, Ash? Like, did you push a domino? Like,
you pushed a domino.
But you know what? The spiritual community needed a shakeup, and I call it divine timing, or, you know, whatever. But it's time. It's time that people are able to even bring up, if you want to talk about the problematic stuff, let's open the floor and discuss it so people can be educated on why certain things are harmful and not just have their ass reamed for it. You know what I mean? Like, that's not going to be helpful. And actually, that's why I made the post about protocol being followed in those times, because if not, we know that sends people further into cognitive dissonance, which can be even more damaging. And if people are experiencing cult-like following mentalities, that's going to send them further into the arms of a possible abuser. So I think it's important to approach them with sensitivity and care. And yeah, you can be firm. You can say, I'm not going to let you say that about me if someone's saying something terrible. And you can be firm about that. But you also need to educate on why they can't say that. Because then nobody changes. You know, that's the thing. If we want to see change in the world, we want to see people value more people, then we have to show them why and how they can through our education, like educating them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And through representation, through your actions, and because they're watching us, not in a creepy way, in like a, you know, it's very empowering. Roxy says in the chat, Ashley, you're amazing. And I completely agree with you. And I think you're right. It's a time of change, and it's a big, like, a shakeup was needed in this space. I think it was due. And you definitely pushed that first domino. So I think a lot of us that understand what happened here are very thankful to you for that.
Yeah. And I think it also was powerful coming from somebody who doesn't necessarily post spiritual content, but is a spiritual person. Because I'm very dedicated to my practices, my daily practices that I do always, you know? Yeah. And I was afraid to share those things. I don't think they're problematic, you know, like how I wake up and my routines in the morning that help keep me centered throughout the day. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be spiritual. It's also because I have to have systems and I have to have routine, or else I will melt down and have burnout and it will be really bad. So you could even take that route with it. And that's why I always say, no matter what name you put on it, manifestation, creating, ambition, drive, it's all the same thing. It's just what name you put on it, you know?
Yeah, I agree with you. There's some kind of truth that a lot of different language can get at or can get away from. But yeah, I agree with you. And Roxy says in the chat, the three of us equals a boogeyman under Allie's bed. Solidarity. So there you
I've
go.
always wanted to be a boogeyman.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of like you get to do your little spooky hands.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I on the parents thing, which was pretty shocking, how people's families and all the things being drug up into it. I was just like, wow, how's this not stayed just on TikTok is beyond me. Like anything that's ever happened online for me was strictly just like online. You know what I mean? And I was really shocked to see that. And if I was coming to my parents and being like, get on video, I'm talking, they would whoop my ass. They would be like, what, girl, what are you doing? No, don't, no. They wouldn't allow it. But that's sticky.
No, it's a messy ordeal, this entire thing. And the fact that, like, I mean, even just yesterday, my grandmother who passed away was dragged into it. It's just like,
oh, I'm sorry.
It's some of the messiest stuff I've ever even seen online, much less been a part of. Roxy says the way she has to whisper in the bathtub, though, her parents are probably over it.
Well, if we're over it, you can only imagine someone living in the same house as someone going on, because, in a house, you can hear that talking all the time. Like if I was a parent and my son plays these online games on Fortnite and he'll be fussing and I have to be like, hey, look, we got to shut it down, or you're going to have to shut that game down, because I'm not listening to you guys. I said, one kid bickering in the house is enough. I don't need to hear 5 different kids bickering at each other on Fortnite. I always tell them, am I going to have to get on there and tell you all to be good? No, you're embarrassing me, Mom.
But you're right. They have to know, they have to be aware to some extent of what's going on. So it's really hard to watch, honestly. It's hard to watch like an entire family kind of partake in this mess that it's become.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I would, as a parent, I wouldn't want to be on camera for 500,000 people to see, like, in this situation. No. But I would say, I have wondered, like, have they told her to, like, hey, girl, like, you need to chill out, like, this is getting serious? Or do they know to what extent even how serious it is something I've wondered also,
Yeah. Roxy says in the chat, can we get a comment on the whole CPS thing and where you stand on CPS as an entity? Because I know that's come up a lot.
Yeah, well, I think that they're bullshit is what I think. I think I'll tell you a story. I used to live in this triplex, and I had some really weird neighbors that lived next to me, a couple, and they fought constantly. And it was annoying. They were annoying, but I knew I wasn't going to be there much longer, because my new place that I was moving into, it was almost time to move into it. And so I was just like, I'll stick it out. And then one day they like taped notes to my door about bringing recycling trash cans back in. And I was like, hey, like, did you leave this? I've been gone for like the weekend, so I wasn't even here, and plus you live here too. So as much effort as it took you to write a note, you could have just pulled the trash cans in. Pretty simple. Well, they were the kind of people that you probably just shouldn't have said anything to, because they made my life a living hell for the next month. They would get home super late, bang on my windows, And they actually called CPS, and I had a visit knock at my door. The lady was like, "Hey, I'm with the department or whatever." And, I had a call, and she accidentally, and this, I don't know if it was an accident truly, but we were just gabbing, just talking. She had already looked at everything and was like, everything seems good here. She was like, yeah, I think your neighbors just kind of made a false claim. And I was like, so the neighbors did do it. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe that I said that. She was like, she was so scared, like that I was going to tell on her and I was like, no. I don't know if it was an accident. I think it was an accident. I think she just got comfortable and was talking and said it. And how severe that could have been. Like this, we're talking about Florida here. First of all, I don't know if you're familiar, but there's been a lot of stories of people losing their children and the fight to get their kids back on TikTok. Right here in the same county that I live in.
Oh, terrible.
But I think it's extremely dangerous, and especially for a mother who's autistic, because that's one of the main reasons I will never have it on paper, is because I'm a mom and I don't know what someone would do with that information, because how what they try to say about people
weaponize it. Absolutely.
They do. I can't imagine how scared she was. That would put me in a really dark place. And as grounded as I am about most things, when it comes to my kid, all bets are off. So
yeah,
if my kid's in danger, everybody is.
Well, yeah, I think that's like the right of any mother, really. And it was multiple. It was Carrie Ann and also Rolling Rosemary.
Oh my gosh, both of them, really.
Yeah, and which is just terrible, because I do think she kind of went after neurodivergent mothers, terrible.
Yeah, that is the one that I'm talking about. I hear stories out of Florida of Black mothers getting their newborns taken by CPS before even leaving the hospital. That's exactly the story that she's from here. And it's a good family. Like, they're a good family. And I think that she was asking more information about the vitamin A or D shot. I think it's a vitamin D shot that they give in the hospital. And they didn't like that. And so they took her child, and then she actually gave birth to another child. And they were trying to they pulled them over on the side of the road and took the newborn away. It was I mean, I was in tears. I was so mad. I made a series. This was before I was on TikTok making content. So I was posting tons of Instagram stories trying to raise awareness. And at the time I had probably 2,000 followers there. So it wasn't much I could do in that case there, but it was terrible. I can't believe that someone would stoop to that level, regardless of what they think. And then with the welfare checks for Roxy, I was just, that's flabbergasting to me to even consider. And I'm a firm believer that we need to be aware of bootlickers at all times. So that was kind of alarming, because I only know of a couple of different kinds of people who like to call police. Number one rule is never call the cops, ever.
Spot on. Yeah.
That nothing good ever comes of it. I have never called the police and anything good ever transpired of it. So even when I was in need of help. So
yeah, I hear that. Roxy says in the chat, a disabled Black woman in Seattle was shot and killed by cops during a welfare check not even a year ago. I mean, it happens all the time. We see it all the time.
Oh my God.
Really horrible.
It's unreal. It has gotten to a point at this point that I don't know how anyone's just idly standing by. It has me researching, everybody is always talking about our Second Amendment rights. And I wonder, at what point can we exercise our rights in self-defense? Like, does the ability to defend ourselves against hate crimes of authority figures. It just ends at that. There's no defense you can have. Like, that's very unfair. And it sounds very authoritative to me.
Authoritarian. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
it's you have to take your rights back sometimes when it's that authoritarian. Absolutely.
And this is why I'm a firm believer in knowing what your rights are and what you are allowed to refuse. And I've had people say, well, why not just comply? And I said, compliance out of, like, because you can, even though it's against your rights, is what gives rise to authoritarian regimes.
Absolutely.
You don't, if you have a set of rights, don't give those away freely.
Yeah.
Never.
And people do. People get too comfortable, too complacent.
They do. They don't say, oh, well, this is harmless, because it seems harmless. Oh, they're just asking for my ID. Well, I'm a woman, so now they have my address.
Yeah.
So, and that scares me.
Yeah. Very scary.
I don't think self-defense applies when you're marginalized.
Yeah,
in line between compliance and coercion. Absolutely. That's what's scary, is there's no way to defend yourself in the situation. You just have to take whatever's being given to you. And I've heard some people say, well, do what they say, let them break all the laws and then fight it in court. Well, what if you don't make it to court?
Yeah.
Then what? You know?
Yeah, well, this court of public opinion is an interesting thing, and that's ongoing too, and that's its whole own battle to kind of win over the narrative and maintain control of your own story and your own narrative in the face of all these people trying to control it. Because that's the other thing I think authoritarianism does. It tries to say, oh, having self-defense equals you committing a crime, or equals you being a bad person, the abuser or whatever. Like, that's someone trying to take away the narrative of what happened to you. And so to keep control of that is sometimes an uphill battle and a very difficult fight to fight. But I think it's the opposite of complacency, but it's worth it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Ashley. I think this is probably a good place for us to stop, because we've been talking for a while, right. But I so appreciate your time and just coming on here to talk to us. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. It's good to just get it out, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it's healing. So I hope it feels that way for you too.
Absolutely does. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate you guys doing all that you do. I love seeing your content and the music. I can't wait to see what you're going to continue to release with all the new stuff, old stuff, right?
Yeah.
But new to me. So love that. And Roxy, your stuff continues to just like fill my mind full of new things. So I love that. People who can really like feed my brain. I love knowing things. I love learning. So that's amazing. And I think your accounts, are going to continue to flourish for sure as a result of all of this, even.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I know we're getting off of here, but there's some type of TikTok court happening tonight with Aunt Karen.
Speaking of public opinion, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. But stay safe out there. Is all I
will.
Thank you for listening. Find additional content at doxxedthepodcast.com.